I saw Paul Moss about a month after I got out of Schwab in June. And I didn't know that was the last time I would see him, because I saw him in Menards. He looked very well. And I told him that I had gotten out of the hospital, and he was shocked and concerned over me. And that's the way life is. You don't see things how they should be. And more importantly, the way God sees them. You see what's on the surface. I was a little better off than I was in the hospital, but still the weight loss is what he saw more than anything else. And he was concerned for me. And now we have to show some concern for this family. It has been saddening to me as well, and enlightening in other ways as well, as I watch this world dig itself deeper and deeper into the hole of distractions that Satan has in place for us all. Taking our minds away from any thoughts about God or our own eternity. The world says that it comes no matter what we do. They're half right about that. We have something to do with what direction it takes. That is not prefigured out, as some say it is. We watch television, our phones have so many distractions coming at us in the course of a day that much of the attraction that you see is senseless. I have another video at some point where we'll watch it. People walking into open holes, watching their phones. One lady walked into an oncoming bus, watching television on her phone. I admit it, the one that with the hole was funny. Chalk that up to something that wasn't funny, but it was so obviously about to happen. Everybody was coming at her at the same time, and she disappeared into the hole. But this is all planned. Distractions in the air, everywhere. People walking into live traffic, staring into their phones like what they're watching can save them. Others wreck cars texting on their phones. Yet we don't realize how distracted we have become because everyone else is doing the same thing. Try to convince them otherwise, and you become just another distraction. Turn you off. As if you have an off switch. Somebody told me once that we have one, but she didn't tell me where it was. She found hers. We heard about it the morning after on the television. Phyllis Hyman found hers. I haven't found mine yet, and not really looking. Yet, what did Yeshua say about the world? Drop anchor at Matthew, the 10th chapter, the 34th verse. Matthew, the 10th chapter, the 34th verse, where it says, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace on earth. I didn't come to send peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law." That one wasn't that hard. In my experience, that one wasn't that hard. And a man's foes shall be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take up his staros, you have cross most likely. That's a mistranslation. Who takes up his staros or stake and follow me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life shall lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake shall find it. And there have been those throughout history have seen things around them in the cosmos or this world and seen it clearly and the way it was. Moses looked at the entire enslaving of the Hebrew people by the Egyptians. They called that civilization, Egyptian civilization. And that was civilization. What's wrong with this picture? Ask the Hebrews what they called it. But Moses called it wrong. This is wrong. Yeshua looked at the entire Hebrew social order around him in Judea, the way that the Hebrews, the Pharisees specifically, had remade the society in their image, and realized he did, they haven't even now. Yeshua said, this is wrong. Galilei, the astronomer, looked through his telescope and everything out there was round. And he realized that these people down here with their flat earth societies, with was the cosmology dominating his day, and it was wrong. How is this world flat and all the others in your purview round? It's wrong. He said so. Mohandas Gandhi looked at the socialist societies of imperialist oppressors in India, realizing, and he said it, this is wrong. Martin Luther King looked at this entire racist civilization here and its capitalist underpinnings, and society here assembled the way it was, and realized that this is wrong. All of it wrong. Entire society is wrong. Sometimes when balance has been entirely lost, God lets a few people know that everything around them is wrong. But whose world is it right now? And all of those I have named came to a swift end. Yet, most of the world, having become ensnared in it, is unwilling to face the reality of these circumstances. The fact that each and every single thing they have done here in this prevailing worldview is wrong. A few people benefit from it because everyone thinks they are benefiting somehow, that they keep on long enough, will be as rich as they are. Wrong again. Many know that in their core this is wrong, and it causes them pain. The more real this fact is to you, the more pain it brings. Yet, most of us buy into the engineered distractions and keep quiet. Having seen the result of speaking out against the prevailing prevarication, and that's what it is, prevarication, lies. The reward for speaking the truth, who wants these rewards? Ridicule, self-doubt, mental confusion, persecution, excommunication, and ultimately execution. That's the rewards of those who speak out against the status quo. No matter how right they are. And they all were right. And this is wrong. All interests, however, become vested. And not in this world's sordid history, and really, when has it ever not been wrong? So, on some level, we have a president now that has how can I put this politely? A kryptonite on Superman like relationship with the truth. Never had that before. This visibly anyway. We had it. Nixon wasn't much worse. But even he lied about it. This one doesn't even lie about it. And his base goes along no matter what happens. All the hidden controllers of our civilization are driven to maintain themselves and their status at all costs. And their instinct for survival applies not only to beasts and bioorganisms that they have put into place, but to people also, businesses, governments, denominational religions, and to philosophies. Indeed, to every mental structure known to us. And the pathway of this fallen demonic mindset, I call it what it is, demonic mindset, is to use and abuse all those who quietly surrender to this structure in the service of their own personal gain and the maintenance of that status quo. And we buy into it, not realizing that we are being used by Satan. And you have known what he was doing with everyone else that uses his way. As soon as he is done with you, he kicks you to the curb and kills you. We know it's coming. We know it's coming. Satan and used everyone and everyone he used, eventually he throws them away. This time we know it. And somehow we are hoping to be some of those ones that get some of these world's goods before he comes for you. That's no win. That's the win that they told us about. You know that old canard. The one who dies with the most toys wins. You've heard it. You've heard it somewhere. It's out there to be heard. Hoping all the time that somehow between that period and then we bestow upon ourselves at some point our title today. The Prevaricant Nature of MORE. The Prevaricant Nature of MORE. This is nothing now. We have surrendered to it throughout time, over and over again. But at present, we surrender our Sabbaths and holy days, and we all say that we need it for ourselves in order to make more money, own more stuff, do more things, go more places, eat more. Watch that. After eating more, we promise ourselves that we would exercise more. After spending too much, we promise ourselves we will invest more. But we wind up spending even more. We see the people around us with more, so we grow our businesses more. And somehow it's in our mission statement now, all corporations have to have more every quarter, or our businesses are taken over hostile style by Wall Street. It's in your mission statement now. When you sign on to Wall Street, you're somehow going to make more in the first quarter than the second, and more in the second than third, and this goes on and on and on. How? Increase your prices, increase your global fingerprint or footprint now, largely. All the American car companies are in China now, learning how to make a faster electric car. Those who are winding up somehow learning the hard way that your president isn't making these things with China to better things for you, because the Chinese won't buy our cars unless we buy theirs. They are aware of their pollution problem, and their new cars don't pollute. Ours do. And ours are no good to them until we have electric cars. And who got more out of that deal? Not us. The prevaricant nature of more. We do many things. We buy more stuff, each thing promising more convenience, more that leisure time. Does anybody remember they first wheeled those computers into the offices? It's been a long time now that I was in IT back then. What they were promising you, these machines that be the ones that did all the work for you. You would have more time off. To do more of what we want. Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to that? We got this. More work. More. Makes me think about what Yahweh told the Israelites when they were so slothful about giving to the temple. Haggai, the 1st chapter, the 3rd verse. Haggai, 1st chapter, the 3rd verse. Don't go there often. A little more time to locate that one. The word of Yahweh by the hand of Haggai the prophet, saying, do you have time, all of you, to dwell in your paneled houses? And this house, mine, is deserted. Now, therefore, has Yahweh of hosts said, consider your ways. You have sown much and bring in little. You eat, but you are not filled. You drink, but you are not satisfied. You clothe yourselves, but you are not warm. And he that is a hireling receives wages in a bag with holes in it. Thus has Yahweh of hosts said, consider your ways. But we do consider them. We consider them our ways, the only way to succeed. But at what cost? Not money, but the true cost. If the cost is to abandon our children to a stranger's daycare so that after the net of our taxes, we can, after working a 40-plus hour week, just barely cover the minimum credit payments on our toys. When what our children really want is to spend more time with us. Then perhaps, just perhaps, the cost is too great. And some of us have grown past that, and we have perceived that we spent way too much time in businesses that didn't benefit us in any way except money. And money isn't everything. How many people have you seen in the hospital and the first thing out of their mouth when you see them is, man, I didn't spend nearly enough time at work. No, they say that I spent too much time at work and not enough time with my family. The cost is too great, but we are not allowed to think that way. In this world, that kind of thinking is heresy. We are called lazy if you think like that. And the bottom line is that one day, and it's already happening to some, at the least little excuse, they will snatch your kids from you. That's planned. That's planned. Least little thing you do wrong, they snatch your kids from you. Some going through it now. More will go through it later on. Many more. We are called lazy if we think that way. But that is not what workers think. That's the business people think like that. Because they have nothing else. That business, 1 quarter, not make enough money, they could lose everything. Everything. This is real. There are barely a handful of people who would honestly call themselves even remotely content in these circumstances. Remotely happy, content, or at peace with their lives as they are living them this way. And now, whatever camp they reside in religiously. Believers, heathen, atheists, or just working stiffs. They have all not time to think much about living again because this life is hard enough. And this one has been this hard, and they think not of Yahweh or Elohim. And the world says that this is the way things were going to be no matter what from now on. And people don't think any differently. And they don't think right. Ask someone if they can live to live again, and they look at you like you're crazy. They worked so hard in this life. Another one, the last thing on their minds. Tired after another week, are you? Gas up the car, hitch the trailer up to it, and go somewhere. The car conks out on you. We all been there. Kids at that point want to go back home. Whatever you are thinking of doing at that point, they don't want to do it. They want to spend time with you. And you are going somewhere else. And you're going to get there at all costs because this place you're going is so wonderful to sit down in and relax and do the things that you want. After all that snafu with the car, they broke down and had to be towed back. $100 more that you don't have. And you crawl back home, oh, so well prepared for the busy week ahead. Not one of you having enjoyed any of this time because things didn't go the way they planned. And you go back to work the next week, weekend shot, and haven't had one this weekend. We having fun yet? The answer is most likely no, because we have left God out of our day-to-day lives. Note what Yahweh said inspired Isaiah to tell his people in his day. And this had me thinking Elohim was already thinking of mankind as he has now flummoxed completely the food supply. Isaiah 55:2. Isaiah 55th chapter, the 2nd verse. Why do you spend money for that which is not bread? Think about that for a minute. All this COPD and all this out here, already he was thinking ahead to all of the things that man does to food. Why do you spend the money on what is not bread? What was he thinking of? And your labor for that which does not satisfy. Hearken diligently unto me, and eat you that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. At one time, that's how we used to gauge the people that were well off, their fatness. Now it's the worst thing in the world to be. Pack on a few extra pounds. God doesn't think that way. Are we at peace with this consumer-based capitalist society? Most of our children are. They are not apparently students of history. They have now a round of socialists they back. Most of them have not heard of Mussolini, huh? Mussolini was one of the heroes of their hero, Bernie. It goes around and around, and around and around and around. And after flipping around a time or two, it gets old fast to us old folks. It's my experience and what I have experienced over this lifetime, and among those who I know it, nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change until we have a way to back this. And not a national backing, because they will now back that thing happening in Rome. And that's not this. They'll make you think it's that. You know, I dig one hole, that. Well, they said dig two, one for them and one for you. That's two, and I'm done now. But the lie of more infuses each and every tiny part of this society in countless ways. More than we ever notice. More than we realize. Satan's most effective weapon is the lie that he does not exist. The idea that smart, well-educated people don't believe in a devil. You've heard that. I have. In corporate, it's a mantra. What it is, though, is superstition. Their superstition. Or a fairy tale. Atheists say the same thing about God. But why are they thinking about something that doesn't exist? Really? Something that it exists not, we don't think about it. Really? So, atheists. How many of them in the foxholes, though? Bombs exploding all around them. And that guy on the end of the trench there praying 5 minutes ago, he was an atheist. And that bomb exploded about 5 feet away from him, and that cloud of shrapnel, the only thing that kept his head from coming off of that hole he was buried in, changed his mind real quick. And that's another thing that this generation hasn't found yet, is God in the foxholes. And they have not experienced, and I don't experience it either, but most people are now, a war thing is, no. The thing nowadays is rebellion. No one talks about war anymore, because most of the folks that think about rebellion don't think about it too much, because a rebellion eventually will topple a country. Ask Venezuela. But I hear that that one is instigated by the United States. But that's just me. I'd dig another one. That's 3 now. Now we can play whack-a-mole. We got 4 holes here now. But his most effective weapon has been war and his non-existence. Again, the most effective persuasion is one that we are not aware of. Note how among people we all mirror each other's behavior. They have the studies about this, where they'll be in a room together. Everyone will stand up suddenly, and all the other people are standing up too. And nobody knows why. One person will cross their legs, and everybody on the line will cross their legs. And nobody asks anybody why. These are noted studies. When you see someone yawn, you're not sleepy. You're yawning too. When you hear someone laugh, I won't do it. You feel like laughing. Early on, the television industry caught on to this. And marketing experts realized this. And most TV programs today, especially sitcoms, have a laugh track. And always have some guy in the back laughing uncontrollably over the laugh track. These shows always do better in the ratings for some reason. Once in history, a show went the other way. Anybody remember a show from the 80s called Frank's Place? One person. Tim Reed, a comedian, produced that show. A Cheers-based show. It was Frank's Place, it was a bar. The dialogue was sharp, akin to Frasier or something like that. Good stuff, well written, sharp dialogue, potent stuff, nearly perfect actors' timing. And some of these people on this show were not previous to this known for their comedic talents. But after the first season, they didn't do badly. The critics loved it, but it was believed to be geared more to the detect the racism here. It was geared too much to the colloquialisms and flavor of New Orleans. Ninth Ward considered heavily in that. And the Ninth Ward hasn't been repaired yet from 9 years ago. A lot of people don't know that, though. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Got 3 up here now. The show was eventually canceled, but the CBS, in their infinite wisdom, went to Mr. Reed and offered him a laugh track. He refused it. He didn't know at the time he was deep sixing the show, but because they refused the laugh track, canceled the show. So much for this going against the grain stuff. And why I have so many holes back here. Because I'm not big on them either. Because it's coming anyway. Might as well go down, fight.
That's right.
Individualism is claimed in this country, but is not allowed in American society. And yet, when you see someone lying, what do you feel like doing? The president does it. Everybody else does it. Everybody is lying now. Of course you're not. At 20 years old, when you see an attractive member of the opposite sex drooling over a car, what do you feel like buying? That car?
Yeah.
Of course not. It has no place in your brain to think that way, because nothing is there to do that for you. When you watch television every day, your kids watch television every day, 30,000 acts of violence every week on television. Before you're through with that, and then you go to school the next day, you're 12 years old, and what do you think your options are to think? Violence? Of course not. No one thinks that way because everyone else does. This is what they tell you in the polite society. Everyone thinks for themselves. But everything on your phones, everything on your televisions, on your tablets, and everything else is going this way, and you think you're not too? You are, whether you think you are or not. Please do not continue to lie to yourself, saying that these things do not matter. As actors, singers, rappers, and entertainers already do. They lie all day long and say that those scenes and that music in your ears all day has no effect on you and the way that you think. The advertising budgets now are in the hundreds of millions. All those advertisers paying those hundreds of millions of thousands of dollars for the ability to control 1/2 minute of television programming in prime time. How much was a Super Bowl commercial this year? 30 seconds cost $6 million. And that was spent for nothing. No, it wasn't spent for nothing. Only a strong mind can refuse to be influenced by its environment. And those who live and already have succumbed to that environment, yet we continue to insist that watching 8 hours a day cannot possibly have any effect on us as individuals, and certainly not on the society at large. What? And whose the world is this? Who? Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, the 1st verse. Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, the 1st verse. And he has made you alive who were dead in trespasses and sins, in which time in past you walked according to the course of this world, and next whose way you followed, according to the prince of the will of the prince of the power of the air, this spirit that now works in the sons of disobedience. Who after all are these sons of disobedience? Anyone who is not following Elohim. Anyone that doesn't follow him. After all, who controls this world presently? 2 Corinthians, 4th chapter, the 3rd verse. But also, if our gospel is hidden, it is hidden to those being lost. In whom God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelieving ones, so that the light of the glorious gospel of Messiah, who is the image of Elohim, should not dawn on them. Yeah, constant interruptions, and constant anything but this. And when you get time, oh, I don't have time. I get the phone and all of this. We are totally controlled. We have no idea just how controlled we are. The new game, though, is speed and time. Everything is done yesterday and last week. That's old, but it's still relevant. We happily think no one is doing this stuff anymore because some of us are. A Happy Meal costs you now what? For two. Well, for four, it's about $16. $16 in a grocery store, you will usually garner a nice meal for four. But we don't have time to sit down and do that. So tired we are after work because you had all that stuff you get there. And by the time you got home, you hadn't time to cook yourself a nutritious meal. You go to McDonald's. More stuff, more salt, more protein, and that's more saturated fat, more GMO-laden stuff. That's protein. But is it actually protein? Or is it soy? In meat-saturated America, soy is not important. At least that's what we're told. But worldwide, soy provides the majority of the world's protein. All of it. Presently, 90% of it supplied by one company. Just who is that? I heard it somewhere. Monsanto. Their published official business plan calls for more. Ultimately, their plan is to control 100% of all soy production worldwide. One government-protected multinational corporation that measures its success solely on the basis of profit, controlling the majority of our planet by our elected officials that we elected and put them in charge. Now they were controlling the majority source of protein for the entire race of people. Do you know this is happening? Many don't care because the prince told you it's a conspiracy theory anyway. Many will quickly ask, are you sure that's true? I assure you that it is. Cancer is now proven to be a man-made disease. This is something that came out a couple of days ago. It didn't move the markets one iota, up or down. No one cares, because it's a cancer in this nation, in this world, is worth $12 trillion a year. They don't care about you. They don't care about anything but that stock going up. This is the essence of our stock markets and their greed partners, the banks and corporations. All of these are part of a system dedicated and evaluated solely on the basis of profit margin and growth. More. Within this growing monster, humanity cannot be considered valuable. This machine cannot afford to consider anything other than the bottom line. The profit margin. More. It must consider anything else an impediment, and its only value is something pushed aside in their need to go forward. We call it business. We were given a piece of it to justify its existence. The little guy. That is that 401k that you're depending on to retire in a few years. If the company doesn't sell it off when they close down. I have one upstairs. Every year they sell it off. Haven't done it yet, but every year they try. But a lot of people now that made these deals are now old enough to be affected by them, because it's a little bit different in your money. In my money, not so much, because it's your family is retiring. It's a little bit different. A little bit different. We were only given this perk because this allows us to make money off of the stock market. Not much as the market does off of our money, but we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. Our continual purchases and attempts to keep up with the Joneses keep us more and more in debt. We use money and we don't call it money anymore. Be careful of those who call it wealth. Somebody heard that. Wealth is not countable. It's got a lot of variance in it. Money not so much. Not much at all nowadays. It's all opiate. The new opiate for the masses. Who are? Yeah. They've heard that one too. Rhymes with masses. Yeah. I would never do that. Out loud. Debt is at an all-time high. That's planned. The average American owes $16,000 right now. And that is not including mortgage payments and college loans. That's stuff, impulse stuff on your credit cards. The banks, stores, markets, and all position themselves as benign providers. That one maxed out, get another one. Max that one out too. Max that one out too. Get another one. The banks position themselves, as I said, as benign providers for you. But should the markets collapse, we would be instantly their chattel slaves. And not even the United States slaves, because our money is that's gonna collapse the world. We would be slaves to the Chinese, the Japanese, largely now Indians. Note the word of God concerning debt. Proverbs, the 22nd chapter, the 7th verse. Proverbs, the 22nd chapter, the 7th verse. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Proverbs, the 29th chapter, the 7th verse. The righteous considers the cause of the poor, but the wicked does not understand wisdom. Please, if you come away from this with nothing else, understand that the rich care not about you. The rich don't care about you. You were given that 401k in the illusion that you were participating in the stock market. But the only thing that you will contribute to fully is its collapse, whenever that is. Because at that point, you have heard the rumor that your Social Security card identifies you to them? Examine this for a second. Social Security was for adults who were about to have a job, right? And how you would identify yourself through that job, through that number. Why are they now having infants with Social Security cards? They're not even ready for preschool yet. Why have a Social Security card at that age? I would tell you, but I would dig her hole. But all of it will come out when the market collapses. We must return to prayer. We must learn to only purchase what we have the funds available to buy. We must use credit cards for, my dad did it this way. Major transportation or something in the house that happens, like a furnace or something. Anything else? Put that card away. Put that card away. We can't do it any other way. We can't do it any other way. Because anybody that has caught with this market in a letter of debt, you're going to be a slave to whoever you are in debt to. And don't expect this country to do anything for you, because it's their debt that you're going to pay for, and your butt is paying for it. And you heard it, and hey, that guy that up there is don't know the language and don't know what he's saying and don't know what he's talking about. Listen carefully. Listen carefully. Hey, I know what I'm talking about. They do too. We must live for God. Forget about keeping up with the Joneses. Believe me, they're broke too. The antidote to more is less. When Yeshua came, John the Baptist gave us an example of that less is more concept. John, the 3rd chapter, the 30th verse. John, the 3rd chapter, the 30th verse. He must increase, but I must decrease. Having enough to fulfill your obligations is enough. That is hard enough. You are in no contest with anyone else for things. You can't afford it. Don't buy it. And that's the best advice I can give you. If you are still attached to that stuff, perhaps you are not attached properly to your faith. And that spirit within you might be weakening a little bit. The only antidote to vanity and more is the death of self, as Yeshua taught us on the stake. Luke, the 23rd chapter, the 44th verse. And it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness all over the earth until the 9th hour. That's 3 hours of total darkness. And I was looking into that last night. It's events like this, I find them in the history books. All those who don't believe the Bible, the history books lying too. "45. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was torn in two from the top down." And I read somewhere last night that I've been wrong about that all these years of the width of it, 8 inches? No, it was a foot thick. A foot thick. And crying with a loud voice, Yeshua said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And when he had said this, he breathed out the spirit. And when the centurion saw what he had done, what had been done, he glorified God in saying, "Truly, this man was righteous." John was martyred. Yeshua was martyred. To the world, they were nothing. In order to make it into the kingdom of God, we all must become nothing to this world. This less is more to him, Elohim. And this he will honor. And our markets crashing has nothing to do with that. Don't worry about that. If you seek to save your life, you will lose it. But lose it in this life, you will gain it in eternity. The spirit within you will overcome this prevaricant nature of ego and more in this world. And we all will become so much more for eternity in the kingdom of God than we have ever been in these stores as consumers. or slaves to Satan in this godless age. Let us work not for more, but for the Most High. Eternity with the Most High.